Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply, and this video is to bring you a closer look at the Burns number 50. A number 50 by Burns is simply a push plate is all it is, and I'm just holding it horizontal just so you can see a closer look at the plate itself. The 50 is this is a 3 by 12 size plate. Not uncommon. You'll use a petite 3 by 12 when you have a door that has a very small style, 3-inch by 12-inch. Okay, the 50 is also 50 thousandths of an inch thick. Yes, ingenious. My caliper tells me that it is 0.048, typical variation. This is in the 609 finish. That means, well, it means three things. It means it's it's antique brass. It means that it's made of solid brass, that it has an antique finish, and that it has a clear lacquer over it. What you see here is, if you see a scratched surface, it's just, of course, the peel-away protective film covering the architectural hardware itself. I've seen a lot of antique brass, and I would say that this is certainly antique brass. I would say that this might be a bit on the lighter side of antique brass. But when it comes to flat goods, I would think you're going to get a bit more of a consistent, lighter kind of look. But to my eyes, and only to my eyes, antique brass always gives me a green sort of look. When I see a hint of green, that's when I know it's antique brass. And they've done a pretty good job here. Depending on how the light hits it, it's either darker or a little bit lighter. But I'm very pleased with the finishing of this. And that's really the, you've got just science and then magic, and the science is just cutting the plate. The magic is in getting the finish really nice, because that's just chemistry. That's that's a human being actually creating that chemistry to make that finish, and that Burns US 5, properly called 609 antique brass, looks pretty good. US 5 means antique brass, there's no doubt. That's the US number, again, ingenious way to call it. 609, however, means that the base material is brass, where US 5 doesn't define to us what the base material. So the BHMA number, Builders Hardware Manufacturers Association, 3-digit codes, they're not all 3 digits. There can be a letter afterwards, but primarily 3-digit codes tells us not only the finish, what it looks like, what it's going to look like, but the base material, which has everything to do with what it looks like. You can do antique brass on a steel base item. You can order hinges in a antique brass made of steel. That's going to be I don't recall the BHMA code for antique brass. It could be 638. 638 is what it might be when it's made of steel. So since I've opened up that box, let's get the answer. So looking for BHMA, when we're doing an antique brass on brass-based material, we know that it is 609. When it is on a steel-based item, indeed, it's 638. So that's really neat. 638 and 609, they're both antique brass. One's steel and the other's brass-based material. Has everything to do with what it will look like. It will include screws. Okay, typical. These are likely 6 by 5/8 oval head, just typical sheet metal screws. Where will you use this? On a door that has a narrow style. You can have a pair of French doors with 3.5-inch stiles, 4-inch stiles. Well, you need a plate that's going to fit in that area. As the width grows, so does the height generally. 3 by 12, 3.5 15, 4 by 16, 6 16, 8 16, 4 3/4 by 20 are typical sizes, but it's just a piece of flat good. It's just a piece of brass that's been sheared, and you can have it any size that you want. So be mindful, you're not restricted to any size. Burns would be happy to cut you a 3x12 as much they'd be happy to cut you a 3x18. You might want a little taller plate if you have 8-foot doors. Same doors, skinny little styles, but if you had 8-foot doors, well, you might want the proportion of the hardware to grow with the height of the doors as well. So just because 3x18 is not in there doesn't mean they can't make it. They absolutely can. They would certainly do that. So that's where you'll use a small little plate. I like plates that are larger in the sense of if you've got a flush door, rather than use a 4-inch plate, because you know the typical hand is larger than 4-inch when you're pushing a door. You'll see a wear mark on the side of the door. You know, it's because the hardware is not wide enough. But it's always a balancing act of how much hardware do you want on the door so that it doesn't, so that it operates or functions the way that hardware is all to, but not so much that it overwhelms the aesthetic of the opening. If you're doing a public library, you're not going to put a big giant sheet. Public library, you know, a beautiful rift cut white oak door. And the transom panels, everything's matched. The casework is all matched. How much hardware are you going to put on that door? Enough to function, but you're not going to put an armor plate on it just because you don't want the door to be scratched. So it's a balancing act. Let's switch to the screen view and take a closer look at some supporting documentation. Here is the item that we are indeed looking at. Let's take a look at some photographs that we have, just for the sake of doing so as we have the photographs. So let's take a look. A little bit darker when there's less light reflecting off of it. Nice example of what that antique brass looks like. Again, a little bit light on the lighter side in my experience, but nonetheless it's clearly antique. Again, how the light reflects on it. Screws, those are called oval head undercut. Undercut, oval head. The undercut is this feature right here, and that allows a flathead or an oval head screw to fit onto something that's a very thin base material. Without that being undercut, the screw would be woefully standing proud of the face of the installation. Okay, very slight countersink that's here. Now, also what this image reveals here is that there's a pencil bevel on here. That's what's called a pencil bevel. A very, very light chamfering that's done, just so that you can safely, well, within reason, slide your hand across this without, you know, creating, you know, some major trouble. You know, so they break that edge with this pencil bevel. Okay, and all push plates have that sort of pencil bevel or a wipe sort of bevel. Okay, so let's take a look at some additional information that we have here. Extended description information, push plate, square corners, sure. You can do these in radius or round ends as well. Radius corners or round ends. The size, the thickness, 4 beveled edges. 16 gauge, that's a little light on that. 16 gauge would be closer to 063, I think. This is 050 is what this is, 50 thousandths. That's typical for push plates, kick plates, unless, of course, you order something like 125 thousandths, which is available as well. The screws. Now let's switch over to the manufacturer's page as seen here, where we're going to be able to take a look at all of the Burns products that we sell by means of this horizontal navigation here. There's also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog. And let's click on that, and then we'll do a quick search for push plates and their index. Push plates, pages A10 to A11. The A section is the first section that's here. There we go. A10, A11. Okay, shows you the 50 is literally a 3.5 by 12. You change that part number, you'll have a different size. You change the part number, you also have a different thickness. The 80 series is the 1/8 of an inch thick, etc. 70 series, 1/8 of an inch thick with a 4 beveled edge, 80 with a rounded bevel edge, and then plastic laminate. So 2 pages here that will give you an overview of the push plates. I mentioned that you could do rounded ends, you can do radiused corners, square corner, and then a forged. That's going to be a piece of material that's been created through the forging process to give you a very high quality piece of push plate hardware. And you will see forged push plates in public projects where the material has to be, the hardware not only has to be extremely capable of the huge volume that it will be expected to withstand against, but it needs to be handsome as well. And forged hardware is certainly a superior means by which to work brass into the finished product. Now, since we have this catalog open, we can certainly scroll through and look at all of the other items that may apply as well. And indeed, the entire A section is linked to down below as the product catalog. Push and pull plates of all sorts and designs will be in here. If you're looking for a push plate, it's possible that you're looking for a pull plate as well. You might just simply have a double acting door in an application where you need 2 push plates for a single door, 1 on each side of the door. Different shapes, I should point out. These concave sort of treatments here. You'll see this material. You see these types of plates very often on pairs of doors where they need to be symmetrical. You'll certainly need to order these as handed. Okay. Other variations, combination pulls, these are used in applications where you need to push or pull the door from the same side. Cylinder pulls that are used on very commonly with deadbolts or exit devices where you want a cylinder to go through the door, but a very petite means by which to pull the door open, meaning you don't want to use the key to pull the door open. Typical pull plates, plates over push plates is what it is, and then just on and on. Okay. The name Burns has been synonymous with trim and auxiliary hardware for several decades. And let's talk a bit more about that for a moment and as we wrap up this video on camera. And I find my experience with Burns to be pretty good. I'm always thrilled with their fit and finish. I have a 4-foot long door pull that's for a steakhouse and somewhere in, I think, Austin, Texas or Houston. So that'll be my next video. I'm looking forward to reviewing that. I have to admittedly wish that we did more work with Burns because of that quality of fit and finish. Their lead time is pretty average within the industry. It's not the fastest and they're not the slowest. They are right in the middle-ish kind of area. Plan ahead if you want Burns material and you want that quality of the fit and finish in the product. Plan ahead. Order the material. They are a manufacturer. They make things to order. There's not a 3x12 50s and a 609 are not. They're just not sitting on the shelf. So be mindful of that and take a look at their catalog. And if you have any questions on any product offering from Burns, please feel free to reach out to us. They do one unique thing about Burns is they have a very comprehensive ability to offer Acrovin edge corner guards or edge protectors. So you'll see that come up in your healthcare industry, hospitals, assisted living, that sort of material. Any questions on the 50 push plate or any other Burns product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you. Again, thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up, please subscribe, and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.